Welcome back to the Milwaukee Market Update, where we break down what's actually happening in the Milwaukee real estate market. And today's big question: what does 120 tours on a single listing look like? And what can we learn?
Yeah, Ty. Milwaukee continues to show up on all kinds of hottest housing market lists. Today we've got articles and real world examples of just how competitive the under 400K price point is. Also in this episode, we're talking about accessory dwelling units, market stats of Milwaukee, and if interest rates get lower, what does that mean for our market? And more importantly, what does this all actually mean if you're thinking about buying or selling?
Yeah, because let's be honest, there's a lot of noise out there every day. Is the market crashing? Is now the worst time to buy? Is housing about to explode again? We're here to cut through the headlines and give you the real story about what's happening in Milwaukee.
Exactly. And whether you're thinking about buying, selling, investing, or just trying to understand what's going on in the housing market, we'll break it down in a way that actually makes sense for you. If you're new to the show, or if you're getting value from these episodes and returning, please take a second, hit that subscribe button. It helps us reach more people to give them the info that they need about their real estate decisions. And also, find us on Instagram at Horizon Homes MKE, or find us online, homewithhorizon.com.
All right, let's get into it.
All right, Ty, another week here, man. How you doing?
I'm awesome, man. Another week on the pod. Some good weather last week. Very excited about spring, but I think they call this a false spring because sounds like we got some bad news on the horizon.
Yeah, I hate this time of year, man. It's like you get t-shirt weather one day. I was golfing on Sunday, actually. I walked 18, which is like a 5 mile walk. My legs were beat the next day. And you can imagine the course conditions aren't great after we got like 3 days of rain, then it's 65 degrees. I felt like I was walking on a sponge the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden in the forecast, 1 to 2 feet of snow on Sunday. And right now it's March 11th. This is insane, man.
Yeah, hail yesterday. It's cold, but hey, we'll make it through. Once we get to July, we'll be fine.
True, dude. Well, we got some articles here that we want to dive in on, huh?
Yeah, I think we just dive right in. So we've got like two main themes that kind of popped out of the articles from the last month or so here. One is just a general update from something that made a lot of headlines last year, and that's Milwaukee ADUs. And the second thing being just, again, Milwaukee is hot. We've already hit this theme, and the theme continues. But let's dive right into this update here on ADUs. So it's approved. You can now do an accessory dwelling unit, and you don't necessarily need approval from the neighborhood in order to do that. So the three main things that came out of this, Biz Journal essentially update is Milwaukee area embraces backyard homes, but not without debate. Here are the debates that are going on right now: the stealth duplex conflict, the wealth gap for affordable housing. You can hear some of my intonation putting quotes around this, and the absentee landlord protection. Those are like the three main things that came out of this so far.
Okay, so fill us in here. So what? Like, I know there's been a ton of back and forth here for the last year. I think something was proposed where accessory dwelling units, maybe something above a garage, maybe a basement unit, maybe like a rear attachment to like now turn your single family to a duplex or your duplex to a 3 unit. I know it got a lot of back and forth on this. This was kind of created as a way to spur additional housing for people, places to rent, places to live. It was met with some backlash of neighborhoods saying they don't want their single family neighborhood to turn into a duplex. It kind of hit a standstill, but we got news here that this is now thumbs up approved.
Yep, this was approved later in last year. Honestly, I feel like it kind of got buried under the holiday headlines and everything else. Milwaukee's been hot. Here's the debate. Supporters, they call it gentle density, meaning you're creating housing without adding huge apartments. The people who argue it, they call it essentially they're just ending single family zoning, allowing second units to pop up right next door with no approval. So those are like the two rubs here,
Yeah.
like the pros and the cons. And kind of going off that, right? It's, oh, awesome. I can add a unit in my backyard and maybe move into that and rent out my front house because my kids moved out, or we still live in it. We want to make some extra income. By the way, it's my property. I should have control over what I actually get to put on it. But a lot of people are saying, hey, the cost of actually doing this is like $180,000 plus is like the average that they're citing for building this, which makes sense. It's plumbing permits, electrical permits, service being brought into the property. In some cases, if you're in the middle of a street, actually getting access to the sewer access, everything else. There's a lot of expenses. So essentially, it's just a luxury amenity. It's kind of like it looks great. It's got all these window dressings. We're making action towards adding housing, but where is it actually going to get added? Probably in the higher end areas where people have the budget to pay cash for something
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah, I feel like ADUs, whenever I work with a client that's in California, I think this is huge out on the West Coast where they've
Casitas.
got no space to go. There's the only place that you can go is on top of your garage. And I have so many clients will ask me, how about like above a garage unit or an apartment above a garage? I feel like that's like 1 in 5 clients I work with from California ask me that question. I've seen one. I've seen
Mhm.
one, but it wasn't really like an apartment. It was more just like a living space that was above a garage that had like a heater in there. Um, I do think that if this is done correct and there's some control over it, this would be good to see in Milwaukee and in the greater area. Um, I do think we have a housing shortage. We have limited places for renters to move into and for people to be. Um, if it's done correct, I think this could be really nice. I do think that I I don't see this being something where everyone now is going to flock to
Yeah.
create an ADU in their home, though. You know, I think you might have a couple of it happening. I just want to be sure that this gets done correct, and now we don't have people that are turning basements for $20,000 into a separate living space, trying to get rent, not doing it the right way. Because I don't think that's a good experience for anyone. I don't think that on the surface this is a bad thing, though.
It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Like it's kind of in the middle. We've talked about before. You can have hot tea and you can have cold tea. This is kind of like lukewarm tea in the middle that nobody actually wants. It's an option. It's really expensive. And the other piece here is the absentee landlord protection. You have to be an owner occupant to do this. Those
Mm,
occupants honestly don't have the bandwidth or really the desire to add more. They just want to enjoy their yard. Probably the people that would be more likely to add this would be people that are investment mindset. I want to take something that maybe is like almost a abandoned home that probably should be raised and put down into the ground because of its poor maintenance, and add 2 housing units versus one. But there's restrictions in terms of being able to convert something from a single into a double based on like these rules here. So, or you have to salvage a house that probably doesn't make sense to salvage,
yeah.
and rebuild it from the ground up without actually taking it down. So there's some pros, there's some cons. Good to see something going on here. And I also don't think that like our price point in our market supports adding these in some cases. Like I think we get there in a few years. You're seeing they copied a lot of the way that this is implemented from cities like Minneapolis that has a slightly higher median price point than we do. And there's a little bit of that like tear down new development that's going on in those markets. Less so here just because the price point doesn't support it yet, but we get there in the future, I'm sure.
And I also think about the Milwaukee landscape. We have so many duplexes. Per capita, there's more duplexes in Milwaukee than any city in the US.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this stat on Twitter. I didn't fact check it, but we have the third most number of duplexes of any city after New York and Chicago. And Milwaukee's like the 35th biggest city in the US. Um, I don't know if someone wants to have a multi-unit or a property with an ADU or just 2 units, there are so many options for them where I'd probably advise someone, hey, how about you just buy a duplex instead of buying a single family with the idea of adding on an ADU?
And it's not like the duplexes are consolidated to these like runs of duplexes. There's certainly some neighbors that do, but it's like Shorewood, one of
Yep.
the more luxury markets here, has a huge percentage of duplexes as part of its housing stock. So it's not like you have to give up on location in order
Mhm.
to have 2 dwelling units on the property. In some cases, there are some old grandfathered in ADUs, like in Bayview. There's a bunch in Brewers
Yeah.
Hill. It's a duplex plus cottage, like triplex, and it's not weird. It's a duplex and a cottage. Most of the time, the weirdness factor there is the parking is limited, and that's like in a lot of cases, I think the downside for somebody who may want to own or occupy versus somebody who's coming in as just a pure investor looking for cash flow.
Yeah.
Cool. What do we got next on deck?
Yeah. So, interesting article here next. This was by the Milwaukee Business Journal. They interviewed the NAR, National Association of Realtors, chief economist Lawrence Yoon, and they asked him about the Milwaukee market. And it was really interesting reading this article. This is one of the better articles I feel like I've read in terms of providing the why of what's going on, what's actually happening, what are some predictions for what's going to happen. And I don't think it's very fear based. Like I feel like we get a lot of clickbait articles. But he kind of just provides a general overview of the status of Milwaukee. And to kind of summarize this in some nuggets, and then we'll kind of talk here on it. He kind of talks about the shortage of inventory that we have right now, where we have extremely low shortage. We're one of the tightest housing markets in the nation amongst the 50 largest metros with just 2.7 months of supply. He ranks us as the tightest market in inventory.
Yeah, and those who follow the show know that 2.7 months for like all of our counties is like, yeah, we're talking about the winter season. We have some markets that have less than a month. So
Tosa, I think at certain price points has zero point 0.5 months of supply. So that's the greater area. And as you kind of break that down into where a lot of our clients are working, that number gets a lot less. He talks about without more supply, any sort of increase in demand is going to send prices soaring, freezing out buyers affected by their area's affordability. And he predicts if mortgage interest rates drop, the number of buyers in the Milwaukee housing market could surge. But this is only going to meaningfully happen if we have enough homes for them to move into. We need an aggressive boost in inventory. There's a lot of factors that are kind of contributing to all this too, of why Milwaukee has such a high demand. It's relatively affordable compared to the larger metros, low unemployment, and the home prices that have continued to rise as well.
And at a measured pace, which we talk about all the time. It's measured, meaning it's predictable. It's not these booms and busts where you have like, well, it's great now, like Austin, and then the floor falls out from underneath you and you're screwed. It's just, no, we have this long track record of proven results and home prices going up.
Yep. This is kind of crazy. He says home sales could, I thought he said home prices. I'm going to skip that one. Never mind. Not that crazy.
But I mean, that's important. The home sales number of transactions climbing 14%. I mean, the only way that actually happens though is if more inventory actually comes to the market.
Yep. And then last one he mentions here too, before we kind of like break this down a bit more. First time home buyers now account for 21% of the market, which is an all-time low. The median first time buyer reaching the age of 40 is an all-time high. So I think this is kind of just a good status of the market where it's what we've continued to talk about, which is really reassuring to me to feel like, okay, we know what we're talking about, but also we have tight inventory. We have incredibly high demand. We have price growth. Milwaukee is affordable with low unemployment, which makes it attractive and affordable pricing. But we're still seeing prices rise, and we're not seeing enough inventory hitting the market. And he kind of talks about if mortgage interest rates drop, how we're going to see a surge in buyers. I absolutely think that's the case too. But what I'm hoping, Ty, what I'm really, really hoping is if interest rates drop, it frees up some inventory of sellers that are now willing to list their home for sale to move. Because the lock-in effect, where people that are locked into their sub 3% interest rates or even sub 4% interest rates, they're playing the game all the time of, if I sell my house right now, what am I going to do? Because I've got nowhere to move. I've got no options. Homes aren't as affordable as when I bought this, and my interest rate is higher. So I hope if interest rates drop, sure, we're going to have more buyers into the market, but I really, really hope that means more supply comes to the market too, of people willing to let go of their 3 to move to a 4.5% interest rate, creating a more balanced market.
Yeah. And I'll say, like, one of the anecdotes we've shared is that a lot of the people who have been moving, so buying their home and selling, honestly, more of them have been people who had bought in the last 2 to 3 years versus prior to the interest rates because of that lock-in effect. Anecdotally, I've had probably, of my clients that I served back like pre-interest rates rising, I probably have had at least 25% at this point reach out and start inquiring about what does that look like. We're not super like ready to go right now. We're talking like 12 to 18 months. They're starting to get to lifestyle changes because, again, that's what my demographic is, probably closer to people my age, plus or minus from 30 years old. You're going to start see inventory open up regardless of interest rates, which I think is good. That's just a personal anecdote of people who have sub 3%. They can maybe stomach the 6%. And the reason being, one of the people I talked to, they bought a property on 2 acres for like $145,000 back in 2021. That property, even if you just eradicated the home from it, the land itself is probably worth close to $300,000 alone. But you're probably going to find somebody just like him that's a younger guy, just wanted some land for a hobby farm and would be willing to and can probably afford 350 to 400. We see a lot of single people able to afford that. Maybe it's a small family, whatever else. He has like $150,000 worth of equity, which is he's not looking for like a massive increase for the next home. He just wants one extra bedroom. So he sells and buys, but he's got all this equity built in. Eventually, that equity balances out essentially that interest rate change. So that's
Hmm.
one anecdote I'm seeing is I didn't see that the last couple of years. This year, I've seen more and more people for that pre 2022 timeframe. And my second action point of like, Ty, Nick, it's going to surge, so I'm screwed. I don't think so. We just were talking about like ADUs and everything else. Like, I do think in Milwaukee, house hacking, whether that's like buying a single family and renting it to your buddy, or buying that duplex, which we have a ton of, is going to be a huge solution for that younger than 40-year-old home buyer. Like if you want to be a homeowner and get into this game of real estate, house hack is the way. It's just like owning your home with like a small wrinkle of knowing how to screen a tenant. And it's not that hard. It just takes reading one book, listening to a couple podcasts. Like I think that's going to be necessary for people who want to own a home younger than 30 in Milwaukee in the not
Yep.
distant future.
Yeah, I'm with you too. And it's kind of, I don't want to say scary, but it's kind of sad seeing that the median first time homebuyer age is now at 40. And I
Yep.
think that's kind of a testament to just inflation, wage growth not increasing, home prices going up, and Milwaukee is affordable
Mhm.
compared to other metros. Like I've got friends that live in California and their first time the average like first time home buyer price is around 700, $800,000. That's a luxury home here in Milwaukee.
Definitely.
So it makes sense. It's very unfortunate though, because I think that typical American dream of buy your house and you're not going to be in debt and you're going to be able to comfortably afford that mortgage. Well, we're seeing that people are needing to save up more, have higher income, and which is why that median age is now 40. Um, in this article, he urges lawmakers to kind of start targeting some areas, having zoning requirements to allow for affordable housing and allow for ways to get creative to help lower that median first time homebuyer age. I think that's got ways to go before we kind of start to see anything like that start to take into effect. But I would love for there to be some way for the home ownership age average first time homebuyer to be younger because I don't know. I think my parents bought their homes in their 30s,
Yeah.
when they were, and to hear 40 as the median is almost like shocking to hear. It almost is unbelievable.
Yeah. And I guess my general take on this is it's going to get worse before it gets better. It like, unfortunately, that's like my personal opinion. And when it gets better is going to be what we talked about when prices are so high that it starts making sense to do the house hack or to essentially like buy something that needs to be completely renovated and do it from the ground up and take a single family and turn it into a duplex where zoning allows. Like until it makes sense for investors and builders to do that monetarily of buying a $350,000 crappy home in an area where it can support $1 million to $1.2 million value, only then will more housing and density be added to some of these neighborhoods that people want to live in. It's going to
Yep.
get worse before it gets better.
Yep. Well
So
said.
talking about luxury,
Yeah.
the Great Lakes Gold Rush. What a great article
I
name.
love that, man.
This is from Mansion Global. Obviously, I'm a huge subscriber of Mansion Global. That's all I
Yeah.
care
You get
about.
their magazines every week, don't you?
Yes, of course. So, very quick point here. I think this is just interesting. Some key callouts here is one of the main things it mentioned is the Milwaukee luxury real estate market has been very gradually gaining momentum. It doesn't have the boom and bust cycles like you have in other higher price point markets, which again, like in the normal price points or first time homebuyer price points, it's predictable and people like that. So right now, the high end Milwaukee market starts around $770,000, as of December per realtor.com. That's nearly half the national threshold of like 1.2 million. So if you talk about affordability in the luxury space, like Milwaukee has it, and we've grown about 23% from essentially December 2020 until now, where the price used to be about $630,000, now up to that 770,000. again, that's like a 5 year, 6 year time frame where slowly but surely the median price point of luxury homes has gone up. It's predictable. It's almost like an investment, tossing it in some money market accounts where you're going to know you're going to have a good return. But what's truly driving that now? We have exactly what other major coastal cities promise. We have Lake Michigan, we have beaches, and some of these luxury properties have beach access, like walk down beach access. Now that's not at the $1 million price point. That's at probably double, triple that to get your little piece of land there on the water. But it also, we've got culture here. Obviously that's maybe a biased opinion. Professional sports, and most importantly, manageable cost of living. People at like the medium price point are the only people that think about how much are my monthly expenses. Everyone has the same brain. They have like ways that they plan their budget and everything else. Budgeting is still a thing that happens even in the luxury market, but it is definitely more of like a lifestyle thing that they're adjusting versus like a need-based decision.
Yeah. Well said. And I think a lot of what's kept our luxury market here growing and thriving and being a strong part of our market is what makes Milwaukee such a great city as well too. I think it's really easy to underappreciate how good of a city Milwaukee is, especially when you go visit somewhere else and travel somewhere else. And the fact that we have zero traffic, first
Mhm.
off, is such a great quality of life to things. Whenever I have buddies that come visit and we go out to just grab drinks somewhere, they're shocked with a beer is $6. They're like, this would be 15 wherever I am. Like little things like that.
And you can drive, get somewhere in 5 minutes and find parking.
Yeah, and you
Even on
can
the
find
busiest nights, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to walk 2 blocks.
a $15 beer here still if you really wanted to.
Oh yeah.
I think like the fact that we have an ocean next to us too doesn't get talked about enough. Like it's yeah, sure, it's called Lake
It's
Michigan.
called Lake Michigan, but
It is an ocean. You can't see across. People surf on it. It has to be like certain temperatures. It's typically in the winter, so it's like 20 degrees
no
outside, but people
sharks.
do it. No sharks, no. I think there's so much to love about this city, and it's not surprising where you can have a luxury home at a really nice price point compared to what you're going to get somewhere else.
Yeah. It, huge advantage, especially for all these people that are just banking home equity, hand over fist in these median price points. Eventually, you might find your way all the way up there because prices are going up much faster at the median price point than luxury. So we're finding that gap probably close a little bit.
Hmm.
Might find yourself there in some of those premium neighborhoods. But speaking of Milwaukee being hot, not only just at the median price point, but also at the luxury price point, we had a listing go live. We co-listed this weekend out in Menominee Falls, and what's great about this is we own the property. We did a renovation here, and we can be your guinea pigs to test those pricing strategies that everyone's always sometimes a little nervous to test the boundaries of, like, what if I leave something on the table? And we've got essentially a quick little overview here, but hit them with some of the baseball card stats here of what it looked like here in Menominee Falls.
Yeah, and to kind of set the stage here a bit too, I think whenever we're listing homes and advising clients on where to price their home, you nailed it. That they always want to be sure they're getting the maximum price, the best offer possible that they can. And who wouldn't as a seller? You want
Mhm.
to be sure that you're maximizing the return that you can get. What we always advise clients on is number one, the list price we recommend is not what your home is worth.
Yep.
Number two, the best offers we're going to get are going to be within the 3 days of you listing it for sale.
Hmm.
And I would say number three, if you're in a hot area, which is going to be different for every homeowner, be prepared for it to be kind of a whirlwind of a weekend. Those are kind of the three things that I always stress. And what's beautiful about this, Ty, is we have a microcosm of that. We have a case study that kind of shows this exactly here. So,
Yeah, we took the risk so you don't have to. And what was the result? Essentially, we chose a lower than market value listing price. We're not going to share terms of these offers, but we're just going to talk about rough headlines just because it has not closed yet. So overall, we received 100 tours and 20 people through the open house, which is an insane number. First time we've got there. That's a clear indication that we had underpriced the listing for sure. So the first question that comes to mind is, did you really get the full exposure of the price? I guess before we get to closing, I can tell you I feel that we got the full exposure to the price. Once we close, we might be able to report back on that. Of 100 showings, we received 18 offers in total. We've talked about other homes like this in Brookfield and Cudahy where, okay, we got 18 offers, but I was the one receiving the texts and the phone calls asking how activity was so far. how many people fell off to the sidelines because they called me and I said, I'm sorry, we've got 10 offers at this point. And they said, never mind. So obviously, it's unfortunate that we're at this point where people thought they may have a chance at the list price, but really, this is, I think, one of the main things that we discovered, which is really hard to quantify until you get to like a very specific home in an area. This home was listed just slightly below the median sales price here in the Milwaukee area. And essentially, what we've learned is Menominee Falls has a year's worth of demand from the buyers that are out there. And these are the numbers we pulled. We had 100 showings and about 20 people through the open house. And in Menominee Falls, for homes that sold for less than $400,000 in the last 12 months, there were only 143 sales under $400,000. Meaning, if we kind of think about like our months of supply brain, we essentially, for people that left their home on a cold, super rainy weekend, like very rainy, we had to send somebody every morning to go clean up the floors because it was so messy, going out in uncomfortable weather. We had as many buyers go out to showings and open house as many homes that sold within this price range last year. That is going and tying back to realtor.com article. If affordability got any better from interest rates, all of those people are writing offers on that home and they're ready to buy.
Shocking.
Very.
It is shocking. To me, this is like the true epitome of what's going on in the market here, where months of supply of 2.7, but if you really boil this down to just Menominee Falls, months of supply is probably at 0.5.
Yep.
Because the fact that we have 120 tours and 140 homes sold last year in Menominee Falls at this price point, it's a year's worth of buyers are ready. Maybe not all of them are ready to go, but generally those people are probably at some point wanting to buy a home this year. So
yeah, think about the hurdle it takes, because like 100 agent tours and then 23 open house, those are 100 people that have talked to an agent and signed at least a property specific tour agreement, signing paperwork saying, yes, I'm interested in buying a house. If I like this house, I will pay you for being my agent. Like, that is a highly motivated person. That's not just people walking the door to an open house. Those are people who have had at least a real estate conversation about, I want to own a home in this area around this price point.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we also talk about how we need more inventory. We talked about it already in this podcast, and we need double the amount of homes listed for sale. Based on this, if we had double the homes listed for sale, we're still not going to see a giant change in how our market's going to react because of just the number of buyers that are out there looking right now in this area.
And I think so that's like pulling up, I just pulled up months of supply for Menominee Falls single family homes just to kind of like talk about this. It's 2 months of supply, which is like, that's a seller's market. It feels like a seller's market. What is really hard to quantify though is so far in the year, we've only had, 74 homes that have listed for sale, but in that under $400,000 price point, 21 homes. So only 21 homes have been listed this year, and there's clearly an intent of 100 people ready to go. You have 100 people chasing 21 homes.
Yep.
So far year to date.
I think what the kind of takeaways from this are, as a buyer, we've talked about this. We won't go too in depth on the buyer because we've got several episodes of how do you write a winning offer. We have several episodes about how do you get prepared and ready to go, but doubling down that you want to be prepped, you want to be ready to go. So when the right home comes up, you're ready to strike, and you could strike as you need to in comparison to the 17 other offers that we have. As a seller, I think this is, if you're worried about leaving money on the table, if you price your home correct, not what the home is worth, slightly below what the home is worth, that is how you get traffic going through the house. That is how you get the maximum exposure that you can to any buyer that's interested. And that is how you generate the best offers. Because I think if we would have listed this home at where we got the best offer, we probably would have gotten 3 offers that would not have been as strong as what we ended up. Could we have listed this a little bit higher and ended up with the same result? Absolutely.
Yep.
But I think it's really good to remember that the list price we recommend is not the price that your home is worth or what's going to sell for. And I know it's hard to stomach that. And I think that's just like hard to kind of think through. And the list price then all of a sudden in your mind is it's not worth that. It's not worth that. We know. And this only works in a seller's market like we're in right here, where buyers are the ones that are driving up the price. In a buyer's market, this doesn't work.
No.
But in this market that we're in right now, this is to me the proven strategy to get you the best offer with the best terms, with the best peace of mind. And also, if you're in a home like this and you're going to be selling it, 100 people walking through the house, 120 with the open house, we get notifications whenever we have a new tour that gets confirmed. This all took place within a Friday, a Saturday, a Sunday. This was within a 72-hour period that this happened. We waited until Monday to make a decision as well too. That's 120 people in 72 hours. That's like a 10-hour showing window from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or 12 hours. You can do the math of how many people are in there per day. If you live in that home, hunker down at a hotel, at a friend's house, have a staycation somewhere, because it's going to be very disruptive for your life as well too, to feel like you need to come and go for every tour, because there probably wouldn't have been a good opportunity for you to come and go during this as it was taking place.
I wasn't physically there, but 100 people with 100 agents with at least one buyer, in some cases two, over 3 days. So that had a potential of being 300 people through and essentially a 72-hour window. It's not just 100 people. It's 100 people / families and their agents. So you can imagine the chaos there. Love all the tips that you just shared. And certainly you can feel comfortable that waiting till Monday is fine. It's going to allow us to essentially have to filter through some of the noise and have some different ways that we execute and actually keeping you updated. And you may not need, after a certain point, those real-time updates when you're getting a ping and a notification every second. Just know that it's going well, and we're going to navigate you through the process.
Absolutely.
So that's what we got. Obviously, more details come. If you want the specific numbers of like what's happening at the median price point in Waukesha County, what do the inspection terms, we have that data, and we're ready to help people win and understand. In some cases, I think my number one tip to wrap us up here, resiliency of the buyers is really important right now, because there were 4 outlier offers, but eventually they go under contract because they're the best of the pile. And then there was a big cluster in the middle that all looked a little bit the same. And with one tweak, you might find yourself in spring and early summer with the accepted offer in your next home.
Love that, man. Love that. I would say, do not get discouraged, because you will find a home this year if you do the right things. And if you are committed to it, you will find a home. Do not let this discourage you as a buyer.
Absolutely. So thanks for joining us this week here on the Milwaukee Market Update. Follow, subscribe, and we'll be back soon.
Bye, guys. All right, and keep this going.
Keep it going.
Okay. All right. Now, welcome back to Market Update. We break down what's actually happening in the real estate market. And today's big question, I'll let you do that.
Today's big question.
Well, then my response is kind of based off what you say.
I think it should be around Menominee Falls. Is it possible that we have more than a year's worth of supply of buyers?
I think in today's big question, what does 120 tours in one weekend on a listing look like? I think that's a little bit easier to conceptualize and a little bit like, holy fuck.
Okay.
All right, now help me write mine. Wait. What did that last thing say?
What last thing? I'd slightly tweaked this. Instead of it saying we've got 6 articles, I changed it to we've got articles and a real world example of just how competitive the under 400K price point is. Was there like a we're covering?
Yeah, it's all good.
Where are you going?
Hold on. Okay.
Also in this episode. Something like that.
Yep.
This is great dead time for Sumo to edit out.
I know. Okay.
Okay. I'm bolding our names. Just make sure you pay attention. And
Always, bro.
half the time when we get to one of these bits, you're like,
Oh.
You ready?
Yeah, dude. A lot of energy on this. Let's go.
Okay. A little spit. Welcome back to the Milwaukee Market Update, where we break down what's actually happening in the Milwaukee real estate market. And today's big question, what does 120 tours on a single listing look like? And what can we learn?
Yeah, Ty. Milwaukee continues to show up on all kinds of hottest housing market lists. Today we've got articles and real-world examples of just how competitive the under 400K price point is. Also in this episode, we're talking about accessory dwelling units, market stats of Milwaukee, and if interest rates get lower, what does that mean for our market? And more importantly, what does this all actually mean if you're thinking about buying or selling?
Yeah, because let's be honest, there's a lot of noise out there every day. Is the market crashing? Is now the worst time to buy? Is housing about to explode again? We're here to cut through the headlines and give you the real story about what's happening in Milwaukee.
Exactly. And whether you're thinking about buying, selling, investing, or just trying to understand what's going on in the housing market, we'll break it down in a way that actually makes sense for you. If you're new to the show, or if you're getting value from these episodes and returning, please take a second, hit that subscribe button. It helps us reach more people to give them the info that they need about their real estate decisions. And also, find us on Instagram at Horizon Homes MKE, or find us online, homewithhorizon.com.
All right, let's get into it.